Much an arm covered in bandages is seen placing his hand inside a jar. When the hand is removed from the jar, some sort of grayish mud is seen coming out of the jar. A man wearing a skull headpiece with crazy eyes. Browse tells the hunters it's time to gather around and it was time to start the hazing ceremony. His hand is covered in the mud that was in the jar. This was a human of the Balak shaman. A man is seen down on a tree stump with a hunter kneeling before him. Ayen explains to Vikir that the Balak hunters feel guilty when they kill their prey. So before they kill, they spread charcoal on their faces to hide themselves. Vikir, after hearing the explanation from Ayen, thought about how even the Balaks, which was a warrior tribe, had a shaman as well. The hunters in front of him were complaining about the fact that the shaman's blessings usually fail a lot, and that the hunters were only just seeking his blessings. Vikir overheard the hunters talking and thought about if it meant that a human's position as a shaman was meaningless, and realized that the Balak tribe place was not that much different from other places. Iron had received the blessing from a human, and her face was covered in charcoal markings. She kinda looks like a joke. Vikir points to her and tells her that it was quite a sight to see Ayen attempts to wipe off the charcoal markings on her face, telling Vikir to shut up, and that her markings were funny as she didn't get along with the shaman. While blushing hard, she hands over a collar that has spikes all over it and tells Vikir to wear it. Vikir takes the collar with spikes and recognizes it as a dog collar. Iron wears a similar one and tells him that the hunters wear them on the neck so that they won't get bitten by their prey. Vikir holds onto the rope around his neck while staring at the dog collar in his hand. He thinks silently for a moment before deciding to put it on, as he thought about how he was already here and that it would be better for him to adapt to this place. A white wolf with yellow eyes is seen painting heavily with its tongue hanging out of its mouth. Vikir and Iron are seen riding on its back. She turns around to Vikir, asking him if he was really going to be okay if she had told him to hold on to her waist. But Vikir assures her that he was going to be okay, Iron, then tells him that they were going to leave now. But Vikir suddenly sways heavily to the back. Iron smiles as she looked behind after hearing a loud sound chiming faces. Vikir tells him that he should have grabbed onto her waist, and then he would fall if he kept that up. Vikir had fallen flat on his back and onto the ground. Once Ayen had commended her pet wolf. He stayed flat on the ground, thinking about whether he could even get up when his body was in such a horrible state. A shadow is cast over him, which piques his attention as he looks up to see what it was. A hunt had once again appeared before. Ayen and Vikir with his pet wolf behind him. Ayen gets down from her pet wolf and calls out to Ahun. He informs her that it seems like she was very free as she was busy playing around with her slave. He continues to tell her that he was going to catch a bigger prey this time, so that in the next joint hunt, he would become the captain of the hunting group. He was even going to place his grandfather's honor on the line. Iron questions him about why I was willing to put his grandfather's honor on the line when his grandfather only knew about shamanism. Just after Vikir sat up to see what Ayan and Han were talking about. He sees something fast approaching his face. Ahun went on to kick Vikir directly onto the side of his head. This action surprises Ayan, who was shocked to see what Han was doing to Vikir. She calls him a bastard and asked what he was doing. Ahun's smile after kicking Vikir, which sent him flying backward onto the ground. He commented about the fact that Ayen had given Vikir the dog collar, which was a protective piece meant for hunters, but was used on Vikir, who was a slave, as he continues to berate and question Ayan about how she was going to use an injured male such as the MC as a hunting assistant. He tells her to get a hold of herself, that she was a commander, and that the MC was only going to be a burden. But Ayan notices something. She shows a smile and wonders if Han actually believed that Vikir was just an injured male. She informs him to take a look at his waistband before saying those things. Ahun takes note of her words and looks at his waistband, which showed signs of being torn apart. This shocks him. The MC spits out some blood after being kicked by Ahun. He shows a smile and was holding onto a quiver. Holding onto a few arrows, he informs Ahun that he should grab hold of his weapons as he would with a lover, as Ahun was still stunned as to what had just happened. The MC then tells him that his quiver and arrows were taken away. Iron covers her mouth to muffle the sound of her laughter. As Ahun continued to look annoyed and stunned while turning to look at the MC, Ahun finally broke out of his stunned state and rushed over to beat up the MC even more, as he calls the MC an arrogant slave bastard. but a bow grabs onto his arm just before he lands a punch on the MC. Iron tells him that it was enough she had used her bow to hold onto a hunt to prevent him from attacking the MC even further. She asks him about whose slave he thought he was going to punish. On his own accord, Ahun shouts at her that the MC was a slave, and that he dared to insult the Balak warrior. Iron replies back to him that he was being pathetic in front of the MC. But Ahun continued to explain that the MC was just a slave in questions, why she was defending him so much. He then yells at her, asking if she had come to like the slave that was. The MC Iron remained silent upon hearing that from Ahun and didn't reply back. After a brief moment, she touches her head and tells Ahun that a slave was a slave, and that since the MC did something wrong, he should be punished. Ahun agrees with what Ayan was saying and explained that it was what he was saying as well. But Ayan informs him that Vikir was her slave, and that he does not have the right to punish him. The MC then looks curious at what was happening. Iron had given the Kuraka Thomas one punch straight into his face as blood was splattered out. More blood could be seen splattered onto the nearby grass. Ahun was shocked and stunned once again to see what Iron had done to the MC, as she continues to beat the crap out of the MC punishment. Ayan had finally stopped her punishment, as Vikir falls onto the ground with a heavy sound. She then looks at Ahun with her eyes closing brightly, while the MC lies flat out on the ground in front of them. She asks Ahun if he was happy now. She tells Ahun that she knew that he was upset, as he was not able to catch a maiden for himself previously during the ambush with the Moor clan, as her fist was covered with the cursed blood that was enough to drip down from her hand. Her rage explodes in a mad fury as she tells Ahun that she would beat him up once he did the same to her slave again, with her eyes glowing brightly, while her hand was still covered in the MC blood. Ahun was too stunned to speak as Ian asked if he got it. He tells her that he got it, as the MC continued to lie on the ground without even a single muscle moving. Some time had passed after the incident, with Ahun peeks behind, with a sad and nervous look on her face. The MC was behind her, with injuries covering his face. They moved slowly through the forest on the back of Iron's pet wolf. She then asks the MC for punishment at hurt, and if he was angry, but Vikir remained silent and did not respond to any of her questions. She then explains to the MC that she needed to have him punished, as Ahan was a petty and stubborn guy, and that beating up the MC as a punishment was the only way to stop his petty retaliations. The MC remained silent. Even after Iron explained her actions, she then asks him about why I was not replying to her. After a while, the MC finally replies to Iron and states that it was because her punishment hurts. Iron's eyes open wide as she hears his words. Iron instantly does a headstand to spin around in the air as Vikir looks at her. She grabs onto the MC face quickly, asking a bunch of questions. She asks him if it hurts a lot, or if it was bad, and whether his life was in danger with his mouth being squeezed by Ayan's hand. He slowly tells her that it hurts to talk. He explains to her that he had these types of injuries a lot. Iron was blushing heavily as she touches her mouth while facing the MC. She then quickly turns around to face away from the MC. Her eyes are shown to be intensely red as she tells the MC that she knew that she was right about him. And then, even though he was an imperial bastard, Vikir had shown promise. The MC wipes his face with the back of his hand, wondering if the barbarians usually lick each other's injuries, and that licking an injury like how Iron just did was dangerous, as it might spread an infection. She turns around shyly and asks the MC if he needed something from her, and then even if it was one thing, he should tell her, because if it was something that Ian could do, she would do anything for him. The MC then asks if he could really ask for anything. This startled Ian as she jolts up while telling the MC that a Balak warrior does not go back on their word. The MC then takes a moment to think deeply about what he wanted. Iron's heart began to beat hard and loud. She blushes and sweats hard about what he was thinking about so hard. She wonders if the MC wanted to actually do the deed. The MC then tells her that if he could do anything, then what he wanted was good. Iron's heart continued to beat hard and fast in anticipation of what the MC wanted. The MC then tells her that he wanted her to teach him how to shoot arrows. Iron was extremely disappointed in hearing his request and tells him that since it's about arrows, it was fine. They continued to travel through the forest on the back of Iron's pet wolf, as she raises her arm, telling the MC that from tomorrow onwards they would be doing special training. The MC agrees with her suggestion.